Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are. And thank you so much for joining us today in this webinar to celebrate the winners of the SVRI 2026 Research Grant Award. We are here today to know about what research they're planning to do. In the chat, please make sure that you introduce yourself and where are you signing in from, because we'd like to know who all is listening in, and it makes us feel that we're a part of the same community. To go over a few quick housekeeping rules, this webinar is for 60 minutes. The session will be recorded. All the webinar participants are muted. You can introduce yourself in the chat. We would very much like to know who you are. We will not have a formal question answer session in the webinar, but if you do have any questions, please type it out in the chat box, and we will try our best to respond to your questions. If, however, there are any questions that do not get answered, feel free to write us on the email address mentioned on the slide. So to quickly go over how the webinar today is organized, I'm Preeti Prabhugate. I'm the Director of Grants and Impact at SVRI. You will hear a little bit about SVRI grants and what SVRI grants mean to SVRI and the field, as will be explained by Executive Director Liz Dartnell. This will be followed by a wonderful panel discussion moderated by our Global Advocacy Director Ayesha Mago, and we'll hear from SVRI current and past grant winners, following which we will play to you a very short, beautifully made video that will introduce the 10 research grants that have been awarded the SVRI Research Grant this year. Thank you very much.
I am Elizabeth Dartnell, the Executive Director of the Sexual Violence Research Initiative. The SVRI is the largest global network dedicated to research on violence against women, violence against children, and other forms of gender-based violence. We have over 13,500 members across 180 countries. At the SVRI, we love all of our work, and our research grants hold a very special place in it. Over the past 20 years, we've invested close to $11 million in locally led research across 57 low and middle income countries, all of it aimed at understanding, preventing, and responding to violence against women and children. This year, we are funding 10 new research grants supported by the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA, and Canada's International Development Research Centre. Most of our funding is open, shaped by what the field tells us matters. This year, some of it is also directed towards a priority we and our partners wanted more research on, gender-based violence in higher education. The grants funded this year span violence against transgender women, gender-based violence in public spaces, trauma-informed services for survivor mothers, and gender-based violence in higher education, with a focus on STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. 10 projects across 10 countries. Each of these projects places real weight on turning evidence into policy and practice. This is an investment in people, in researchers who, with the right support, will produce evidence that shapes what policymakers prioritize, what institutions do, and what communities demand. And these grants matter even more right now when research funding is under real pressure, most of all in low and middle income countries where the need is greatest. We are grateful to our partners for making this possible and prouder still of the researchers it supports.
Thank you very much for sharing that video, Paula. Ayesha, I would like to now welcome you to conduct this brilliant panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Preeti, and thank you, Liz, for that introduction. I am Ayesha, as Preeti has said. I'm the Global Advocacy Director at the SVRI, and I'm so happy to be here to moderate this panel. This is actually one of my favorite times of the year at the SVRI. So I want to welcome our wonderful grant partners who've agreed to be with us on this panel. Sabitri Sapkota from Possible, a nonprofit in Nepal, Gebeyo Bagasho from the University of Gondar in Ethiopia, and Lina Maria Saldariaga from Aulas and Paz in Colombia. And their complete bios will be available to look at in the chat. We're going to paste them there. So we are going to hear from three very different grant partners, very different projects spanning Nepal, Ethiopia, Colombia. We're going to hear about different forms of violence that they're dealing with, from intimate partner violence in the home to online abuse. But these projects share something really important, which is that they intervene through the relationships around them, mother-in-laws in the family, husbands' relationships, school, parents, and we're going to hear more about some of this. We only have about 25 minutes, so it's kind of quick fire, but our panelists have been very generous and have agreed to do this like quick fire round of answers. And it will give you, hopefully, a taste of the great work our partners are doing and what the SVRI grant has really meant for this work. So without further ado, let me jump right in and start with our panelists. And we're going to start with just a little brief introduction to each of their research studies. So Sabitri, can we start in Nepal? You're working on an IPV intervention within the family. Can you tell us a little bit about your research?
Thank you so much, Ayesha, and hi, everyone. In Nepal, as you've said, not only in Nepal, many South Asian settings, family members often play a key role in family dynamics. While they may not always be the direct perpetrators of violence, they can influence the relationship within the household and, in turn, women's experience of violence and their overall mental well-being. As we all know, intimate partner violence is closely linked with depression, PTSD, and other mental health problems. But we have seen that many interventions, they are only focusing on women. So even though in our settings, many women cannot simply leave this abusive relationship because they live in multi-generational household and face strong social and economic constraints, right? So our research asked a very simple question. What if we worked with the family unit rather than just the women? Does it improve women's mental health and at the same time reduces incidence of intimate partner violence? So we developed and piloted a family-based intervention that involves women, her husband, and mother-in-law. We specifically included mother-in-law in our study because in many Nepali households, they have a strong influence on family relationship and women's daily lives, making them important partners and ally in preventing violence and supporting women's mental health. So the intervention included mother-in-law and daughter-in-law combined sessions, followed by couple session, husband and wife, and a final triad session, conducting weekly for 9 weeks. We call this family intervention Milap. It's a reconciliation in our language, in Nepali language. Various components of Milap, they are focused on addressing the root causes of drivers and consequences of intimate partner violence and mental health. For example, skill building, enhancing connection with important relationship within the family dynamics, promoting resilience, empowerment through Mildil element. We call it mother-in-law and daughter-in-law Mildil element short. While behavioral couple therapy, it focuses on improving spousal relationship, active listening, fostering increased trust, and caring behaviors. So we tested this approach among 61 families with the support from SVRI back in 2023. So we assessed whether the family intervention is acceptable, feasible, and also explored its preliminary impact on intimate partner violence, women's freedom of movement, depression, and PTSD symptoms. I'm going to stop here and then, we'll take more questions.
No, thank you, Sabitri. That was a great, concise summary. And I'm sure everyone's already very interested in that and what else you have to say. So from this family intervention in Nepal, we moved to a school-based one in Ethiopia, looking at online safety. So Geb, please notice I've gone to your short form of your name now. I was only going to try the proper pronunciation once. Can you tell us briefly about your study?
Thank you so much, Ayesha. It's a pleasure to be here, and I would like to congratulate to all the new SVRI grant recipients. So my name is Gab, the short form. I mean, Gabriel is the long form, but Gab. And I research at the University of Gondar, Ethiopia. And I was fortunate enough to receive a SVRI grant to conduct research on technology-facilitated gender-based violence among high school students in Ethiopia. So quite recently, there has been an expansion in the digital platform in Ethiopia and technologies, and there is an increase in smartphone use. So adolescents are spending more time online for different purposes. It could be for education, communication, or social interaction. So while these technologies create many opportunities, they also expose these young people to new forms of violence. We call it technology facilitated gender-based violence, but specifically it includes like online harassment, cyberbullying, identity theft, and deep fake using AI and using your pictures, your photo inappropriately. So yeah, despite these growing risks, there has been very little evidence in Ethiopia to guide policy response, to guide interventions, and response efforts. So yeah, our research aimed to better understand the technology facilitated gender-based violence. So we worked with students, we worked with teachers, educators, and key stakeholders to specifically examine the prevalence of TF-GBV and identify what makes these students vulnerable to this online or digital form of violence. And then we try to explore ways to reduce this vulnerability.
Okay, thank you so much. And then staying in the online space with Lena, but shifting the point of intervention to parents, can you tell us briefly about your research project?
For sure. Thank you. Also, I want to congratulate everyone. It's really a privilege to be able to do this kind of research in this context. So congratulations. Well done. So I'm also I'm fortunate enough to be directing a project on technology facilitated violence, but from the perspective of the parents. So a couple of years ago, Colombia conducted a huge study in which we had conversations with students and parents about online risks and opportunity, not only risks, which was something super important. And one of the things that came out of that study was that parents didn't necessarily have a lot of information, but also didn't necessarily know how to start this conversation, so even take care of their children when they were online. So, and I'm sure this is not only in the Colombian context, in the Latin American context, and I guess in other countries in the world, also parents are always asking themselves, how do I do this? How do we start these conversations? So we did a secondhand analysis of all the data that we have and started to finding really key points. We found that parents felt that they needed to feel more competent online, not only teaching their children how to take care of themselves, but also feeling that they knew a little bit more about how to be online. And also a very, it seems obvious things, but very basic, which is not necessarily is all about technology. It's not that they need more information about how to put parental control, which they do. And it's much more about how to start this conversation, something more related to parenting than even technology facilitated violence. And this is something that sparked our ideas about how to create an intervention. So we are creating a chatbot. Well, we are creating a chatbot. Some of the parents are saying that they want more serious, like a episodes kind of chatbot, and then like an interactive kind of chatbot. We are in the process of doing that, but it's more about how to create those meaningful relationships with their children, no matter in their age or their SENs, but more like how to have conversations about prevention of violence and using of opportunities on.
That's great. So, okay, we've got 3 very different entry points, and each of these projects is so interesting and so timely. I want to go back to the beginning of this journey of working with us at SVRI and thinking of when you first received the grant, and maybe what did you expect and what has surprised you most during this project? So, Gab, can we start with you this time? What did you expect going in? I mean, did you have some expectations, and were you surprised by some of the things you were finding, for instance, in terms of what actually does help young women to develop awareness of online risks, or the specific forms of online harm they were facing, or anything else that you can share with us?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Ayesha. So when we start this research, we specialize this technology facilitated gender-based violence. It's like a new thing. So we assume many students might not recognize the problem itself. But we were surprised that many students were actually quite aware of the risks they faced. And they could, when we interact with them, they could clearly describe experiences such as online harassment, unanswered sexual messages, and cyberbullying. But the problem was like the issue was often was not lack of awareness, but it was a lack of safe options for responding to these experiences. To whom we should tell this? To whom we should report this? And they were also thinking, if we report this, this probably we may face like stigma, or we may face blame, or probably restriction from the internet. If we tell our parents, they may restrict us from using the internet. So that was the thing surprised us, and some were worried about their phone would be taken away, and their fear actually become real. I mean, quite recently, the government introduced a ban on using digital devices in schools. So their fear actually realized in terms of policy. But we don't think that's a very good solution. So overall, our research reinforces that improving online safety is not just about increasing digital literacy, but we need to create a supportive environment for students, and where they feel they can, they can seek solutions or help in a safe way, where schools also and families understand the realities of the young people's lives these days. I mean, our life, young people's life is just connected to the internet, to technologies. So we should also, focus on empowering these young people rather than restricting them. So there is a lot of restrictions from parents, from schools these days, but that's a little bit surprising to us as well.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think it's so true what you said. There's this also globally, I think we're seeing this wave of regulation and this attempt to protect young people online, but actually using measures that are, potentially quite counterproductive and not necessarily in line with the interests of young people themselves. And not truly supportive of their own aspirations and their own need to be connected in an online space. So that's very interesting. And again, what you're saying about parents, which leads me directly to you, Lena, because in the process of designing and the work that you're doing, what has surprised you? What has it been revealing, for instance, about what parents actually need compared to what you might have assumed they would need? What surprised you most once the work was underway?
It is actually something very connected to what Geb just said, because there's a lot of information there. A lot of information. It is not necessarily about having more literacy, like technical literacy for the parents, but it's a little bit more about how to, like I was saying before, how to start these conversations, how to build a trusted relationship with their children, where they can share their feelings or their worries when they see something online. So initially we were super prepared to find all these tools about technology. And then we found out that there's a lot of things. And some of the parents, not all of them, but some of the parents even told us, wait a second, there's a lot of information there. We don't want more information, or another way of giving us more information. Help us understand the how. Help us understand what is the real impact of technology in our family relationships, in the way in which we construct the everyday life in our houses, and how do I put limits in my household? How do I ask my child if something's wrong? Or how do I make a decision? And not necessarily it's about how many hours my child stays online, but how do I make a decision or about what is best for him? Is this website or this other one? Or if we found that there's a problem, cyberbullying or something, how do I respond to that? Which is similar to what Gabe is saying. So it's more about parenting in the digital age and not necessarily having more information or technical literacy.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And moving then straight again to this idea of like, how do we impact everyday life in the household? I like the way you said that, Lena. And Sabitri, this is something you were dealing with, right, in Nepal. So what did you expect to find in terms of the relationships, that everyday life in the household, what you were dealing with, and what actually surprised you as your study went underway?
Thank you so much, Ayesha. I think in studies like this, we were very open in terms of expecting and coming up with a lot of surprises. But I want to highlight a couple of surprises that we were able to notice. That is still sometimes still stuck in my head. So since this is a very unique, where we're inviting mother-in-law, husband and women in the same intervention, in the same session, we hoped that this family intervention would be acceptable. But what really stood was how much participants really appreciated it. I mean, our intervention does not have a lot of complex components. It's very simple things: improving communication, resilience, empowerment, understanding each other, active listening, right? But how a simple intervention like this made such a meaningful difference. Women, they shared that they felt more confident and empowered. And in terms of women's freedom of movement, it really made a lot of differences before and after the intervention, right? So they shared positive changes, the way the family members supported each other and communicated with one another. That was really encouraging for our team to witness. Also, what surprised us was in our setting, women, they're required to obtain permission from the senior members of the household just to be part of this study, to receive this intervention, which was something we hadn't thought of in the beginning, but we had to deal with that one in the process. Another thing that really stayed with me until now was hearing from the children within that family, right? Our intervention has nothing to do with the children, but and also we had not planned to measure any spillover effects on the children. But then during our home visits and in-depth interviews that our team conducted, some of the children in the family, they naturally talked about the changes they had witnessed, they had noticed in their parents at home. They described more calmer, happier, and respectful family environment. To be honest, hearing that was incredibly meaningful to our team, because the family intervention, its potential impact on the it's reaching beyond the people that we directly targeted in our intervention. So those are a couple of things I want to highlight.
No, that is so interesting and amazing. I mean, I can imagine why that would have been very heartening indeed. And I mean, all three of these studies are so fascinating. And I think, people can reach out for more information about them. I want to just redirect us a little bit to talk about the structure of the grant itself, perhaps, and maybe what you see in terms of working with this grant. What has been the sort of impact of this project, maybe for yourself, your own career, your organization, or for participants, for policy in your country, any of those aspects that you'd care to actually touch on? And Lena, I'd like to start with you this time. What stands out most for you?
This is something that we are still trying to figure out and understand, that there's something about this technology facilitated violence that basically impacts everyone. In every country of the world, you can talk about this problem. You can talk about this problem for childhood, for adolescents, for even from parents. So it's a very widespread problem. However, when we started looking at the different parents that we are including in our focus groups, we see that they interpret or they understand the problem very differently. Some of them need more information. Some of them need more guidance, as I was saying, about parenting and things like that. So one of the things that I feel that we're going to make more impact is trying to find bridges between all that different ways in which people need information, or at least guidance or support around this problem of technology facilitated violence. when I say bridges, I mean, there's this, like, in the heart of a project, there is this question about what is it that, what is the thing that we all need, no matter if you're a parent who has a lot of information about technology, that have parental controls, or don't even have a device in your house apart from your cell phone. There has to be something that unites us, and it's like the core of that individual. That's one of the things. And the other thing, I think, it's something also Gabe mentioned, and is that countries in the world are starting to think about this as a public policy. So in Colombia, in other countries of Latin America, the bans on technology, cell phones in schools, or even the consciousness of the parents about not using the cell phones in some of the moments in their households, it's becoming something important. So I feel that we're going to be able to say something about public policy and about the role of families in public policy, which is something that you don't usually think about, because it's clear how schools can do this, and the government and the different ministers, but families are super important in this. So I think we will be able to say something about it. Not finish the project, does not finish it. So I'm not exactly sure how, but those two things are really important.
That's great. And I agree. I think I'd be very hopeful given, the things that you're finding out. Savitri, what about for you, for Milap? Where has the impact really landed for you?
Thank you, Ayesha, again. We've summarized the findings from the SVRI funded work, and then been sharing and disseminating with many people, from community-based organization to the policymakers. Unfortunately, this SVRI funded work, that kind of like we built on that one, because that was just with 61 families, right? We did the pilot. We knew it was acceptable, it was feasible, and it had a preliminary impact on the positive outcomes, like, on women's mental health, and also reduction in the incidence of intimate partner violence. So we built on that work, and that really helped us to keep the momentum for that timing, while we were waiting for the grant decision that would help us to take to the larger powered rigorous trial. So I'm happy to share to people here that building on the lessons from the SVRI funded work, we are now conducting a fully powered randomized controlled trial with 300 families. This has been funded by National Institute of Health. And this is very important because we really want to show the larger impact, and kind of like, this is scalable, and it is also affordable. So we have threefold objectives with this RCT. The one is we want to look at the impact on a larger, sample size, larger family members. We also want to have more understanding around mechanism of change, so that it's more convincing and we understand why the change has happened. And then third one is we want to do some cost effectiveness analysis, so that we can prove that this is potentially scalable, right? So that we've been engaging with a lot of stakeholders from now on, but then the goal here is to reach out to 300 families with control and intervention arm, and then demonstrate the larger efficacy. So yeah, the goal here, we are at this stage where we are very close to completing 300 families in the trial. The larger goal, I want to reiterate again, is to generate the evidence needed to support future scale up. Working very closely with community-based organization, local government, and the federal government, who is more focused on policy component. Yeah.
No, amazing. And Savitri, many congratulations. That is so aspirational. And of course, that connection to deeper, longer term investment in the study, in the findings, to be able to move on, to be able to look at scaling, is kind of the dream, I think, right? For many, many studies. So it's really wonderful to know that. And okay, now I'm going to move to you, Geb, to close off this round. So what about you? What do you see as the different layers of impact of this work in Ethiopia?
At this point, I think the most meaningful impact of this project has been, it brought attention to an issue that has been overlooked in Ethiopia. So digital technologies have become part of everyday lives. But it has, as we have said, it has some, negative sides as well. So it has become like a public health issue, a human rights issue, but there is very little evidence, local evidence, to inform response for this. So throughout this project, we were able to generate context-specific evidence that can help schools, policymakers, organizations to better understand the realities of adolescents' online experiences and the kind of support they need. So this is basically, to the best of my knowledge, this is the largest survey involving over 2,000 students and dozens of schools on technology-facilitated gender-based violence. So I think we strengthen the evidence base. And on a personal level, I think this project has been transformative because it has strengthened our capacity to lead interdisciplinary research and build collaborations with policymakers and practitioners and educators. So yeah, in the short term, I think these are the meaningful impacts we can envisage for our research.
No, that's amazing. And yeah, thank you for mentioning that as well, because I think, it is amazing to know about the way that there's also a personal impact and organizational impact. Like there's transformation in many ways. And certainly also what you highlighted about just bringing attention to issues that just are not known about, because how do you address something where you have no evidence on it, where you don't know it exists, and you cannot understand the nuances of it? So I think that's, it's what we often try to analyze our own work at the SVRI and the grant making. And these are the things that we can see that are so valuable about these grants. So it's really great hearing from all of you. Just you all explain it so well. So we are almost at the end of this session, and I could actually speak to all of you for a full hour very easily. But we have just a few more minutes. And what I want to end with is, for all those people out there, I think, thinking about applying for an SVRI grant for themselves, what is the one thing that you wish someone had told you before you started your SVRI grant? And Savitri, I'm going to ask you to open this round.
Thank you, Ayesha. That's a very excellent question. I'm kind of like thinking, so I'm going to touch upon 2 points, Ayesha. The first one is like, I wish someone had told me earlier how helpful and valuable it would be to connect with the previous SVRI grantees. So to me, they offer practical experience-based insights that are often not captured in the SVRI webpage or the description of their research proposals, or the grant agreements, or whatever information available in the SVRI website, I would say. I realized later on how speaking with them can provide a clear understanding. There are common, practical insights, challenges that would really help the applicants to kind of think about how to navigate that. And also SVRI, later on after the grant, we realized there is a lot of support from SVRI itself to help you build your team's capacity, right? So had I known that earlier, then I would kind of understand or plan how to get that the most, for their team. So that's one thing I thought. Or maybe navigating common implementation challenges that you need to think of. So when I think about common challenges, implementation challenges, one thing that I would have prepared better is, normally we think about the research participants, how to ensure their safety, their emotional well-being, the crisis management, especially in our case, is the mental health and suicidal ideation and thoughts is very common. And we had built this crisis counseling, the protocol. But what I hadn't thought of, and then I wish somebody had told me, was how important it is, the emotional well-being of the researchers and then the counselors themselves, right? Because hearing women's stories, experience the distress, that makes them emotionally vulnerable, and you need to have some plan and then the safety protocol in place to support that. So with that, I'm going to stop, and I want to congratulate all the winners of this round. Ayesha, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Savitri. And Geb, what about you? What is one thing you wish someone had told you before you started your grant?
I think the ethical issue is really important here because when you interview students, I mean, these people, your participants, you will really find the people who are affected by, I mean, any sort of violence, gender-based violence. So they, they may need like immediate attention. They may need immediate support. So you need to really be prepared for that. You cannot disregard those things. So ethical issue is very important. Plus, I think SVRI has great resources. So keeping communication with them is really important. And then, especially if you visit like the SVRI website, every time you will find new things. You will find like blogs or new publications, or if you want, for example, questionnaires, you may find them there. For our research, we found a very good questionnaire there, measurement instrument. So it's really important to keep communicating with the SVRI people. They have great resources, and specifically on the research, I would like to stress be mindful of the ethical issues and finding ways to support those people who were having some issue related to gender-based violence or digital violence or whatever you are going to conduct.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And Lena, final word to you before we close this panel.
I guess that I couldn't agree more with what Savitri and Gab have said. I think that I agree, but there's something else that I want to mention. I think I have mentioned this before in the context of SVRI, is that you guys who receive the grant are not just receiving a grant. You are becoming part of a community. And I wasn't aware of that before we started being part of this SVRI community. So take advantage of it. And just like the connections, the being able to talk to other researchers about your problems, the things that you are finding difficult or easy, or resources that you would like to look for is real important. And sometimes the researchers, we are very basic, working in our own environment, isolated, but becoming part of the SVRI is becoming part of a community. So you should go into this grant feeling that you're part of something bigger, and that bigger part is going to help you fulfill all the objectives that you set for the project. So it's a community that is doing research together, even though that we have different projects. And this is something super powerful. Not necessarily all the grants have this perspective in the way in which they work. So this is amazing. Like, take advantage of this. Feeling part of something is always very important, but feeling part of something that is meaningful for all our research projects is even more.
Thank you so much. My God, I feel quite emotional. I have goosebumps after hearing what you three had to say about that. So I'm just going to summarize those tips for those of you who are listening. Connect with previous grant partners, think about ethics, and then think about ethics again. Communicate with us, use the resources that SVRI has to offer you, and remember that you are part of an amazing community that has so much support and solidarity in it. And I would think this message is specifically, for, again, to add to the congratulations of all the new grant partners that you're going to meet now. And I want to add my own congratulations to that, and anyone else who's thinking of applying for an SVRI grant in the future. So thank you, the three of you, so much, Geb, Lena, and Savitri, for the time and sharing all of this wisdom with us. It really has been wonderful having you here today. And I really hope it's been exciting for our new partners and for everybody else who's been listening. Thank you very much. And Preeti, back to you.
Thank you, Ayesha, and thank you, everybody on the panel. I am emotional too. But now is the time to join the actual celebration, to meet and welcome the SVRI 2026 Research Grant Award winners. Let's meet the researchers behind the SVRI Research Grants 2026. Join me.
My name is Ana Coaglino, and I'm Deputy Secretary for Promotion of Equity and Gender at the Faculty of Exact and Natural Sciences at the University of Buenos Aires here in Argentina. The focus of our research is to better understand gender-based violence and how it affects the everyday academic lives of our students. We also aim to get knowledge about technology-facilitated gender-based violence that has increased since pandemic, and we want to use this knowledge to facilitate people in our institution to access the support mechanisms more easily. And our team is composed of 3 different Argentinian institutions: our institution, Philosophy and Letters, and the National University of Rosario.
In this project, we will co-design digital tools to provide their information to support services for people experiencing gender-based violence.
Esperamos poder colaborar a que las respuestas institucionales y comunitarias sean cada vez mejores y que las personas afectadas encuentren los mejores canales de ayuda.
My name is Persis Sidhwa. I'm a lawyer at Rati Foundation for Social Change, and we are based in Mumbai, India. Our research explores the experiences of mothers who are survivors of domestic violence while also supporting their children who have experienced sexual violence.
This project is unique because it centers mothers' dual experiences of trauma and caregiving, and it generates much needed evidence to guide integrated trauma-informed responses for women and children.
The findings of our research will strengthen collaboration between child protection systems, legal systems, health systems, as well as domestic violence response systems in India.
My name is Dr. Huli MPDI. I work as a lecturer at University Nahdlatul Ulama Mataram, Lombok, Indonesia. The focus of my research is strengthening gender-responsive safety mechanism in STEM faculties of university.
Through our research, we'd like to understand why many cases of violence remain unreported and how universities can build safer and more supportive environments for students. The change I'm hoping to see is stronger university policies and reporting systems that help prevent and respond to gender-based violence. Ultimately, our research aims to support safer campus and contribute to positive policy improvement in higher education.
My name is Mohammed Khalis. I am the director of the Department of Public Health and Clinical Research at the Mohammed VI Center for Research and Innovation. I am based in Rabat in Morocco. The focus of our project is gender-based violence against women in Moroccan universities, particularly regarding women studying in STEM faculties in our country. Through our research, we want to measure how we spread this problem really among students in health sciences and build an anonymous reporting system and a prevention program co-designed with the student themselves. If our research achieves its objectives, it could mean that universities in Morocco have, for the first time, solid evidence on gender-based violence affecting women in STEM faculties.
Hello, my name is Rahima Tahir and I'm the Manager of Linkages and Outreach here at Ziauddin University. We are based in Karachi, Pakistan. The research gap that we want to identify is to help see how safe the universities here in Pakistan actually are for the female staff and the students through their lived experiences and how they walk through the hallways. For this research, we will be identifying how and what harassments are faced by the females here, and do they actually feel safe enough to report them, and if they do so, how much is that taken into account? The change we want to create through our project is to help the universities here in Pakistan realize that policies are just not meant to be on paper, whether they have to be followed, and if not done so, accountability will be held.
My name is Gustavo Acosta Matos. This project is based at the Pontificia Universidad Católica del Perú, my alma mater, in partnership with the University of Michigan and Peru's Ministry of Women. Harassment is pervasive in Lima's transport system, but we still don't know which low-cost, scalable interventions can make a meaningful difference. We're testing two approaches: train community volunteers who are visible present at bus stops, and targeted anti-harassment messaging. If our research achieves its objectives, Peru could have a proven low-cost model for reducing harassment in public transport, one that the Minister of Women could adopt and scale across the country.
My name is Philip Saama. I'm a researcher at the Center for Community and Public Health Improvement in Sierra Leone. Our research looks at the gender-based violence experiences among students at Fruby College and how the university responds when these incidents occur. We are also interested in understanding whether the gender-based violence experiences of students in the STEM faculties differ from those in the arts or humanities. Our study is first of its kind in Sierra Leone, focused on gender-based violence on university campuses. The change we want to see is universities taking stronger action to prevent gender-based violence on campuses and to provide better support to students who experience it.
My name is Dr. Ayesha Mago. I work at the Health Economics and Epidemiology Research Office within the Vital Consortium at the University of Witwatersrand. Our research addresses the issue of STEM students in low and middle income countries who face overlapping risks for sexual and gender-based violence perpetration and victimization.
We know that GBV doesn't occur in a vacuum. It is impacted by the intersection of a number of factors, with alcohol, substance use, and mental health serving as key contributors. Our work directly addresses this intersection.
This study proposes to implement a user-centric digital mental health ecosystem called Modem Plus, which is an intervention that will be integrated to run alongside the university's learning management system. The change we are hoping to see is reduced alcohol and substance usage, improved mental health, and reduced SGBV perpetration and victimization among STEM students at our university.
My name is An Thanh Ly. I'm currently working in Hanoi, Vietnam, and I am a lecturer at the School of Preventive Medicine and Public Health. Our study is the first in Vietnam to examine the scope, patterns, and severities of poly-victimizations among transgender women in the country. This study will provide evidence on prevalence of experiencing multiple violent types among Vietnamese transgender women and its determinants. Our findings will inform more inclusive policies and strengthen the support and prevention effort, and ultimately try to improve the well-being of transgender women throughout the country.
My name is Lydia Majigira Panze, the Executive Director for the Forum for African Women Educationalists Zimbabwe, which will work in partnership with Pindura University of Science Education in this grant. The focus of our research is to improve gender responsiveness and reduce gender-based violence in STEM faculties within institutions of higher education in Zimbabwe. Our research will strengthen institutional capacities to prevent and respond to gender-based violence, expand mentorship networks, and establish an enduring digital platform supporting gender equity efforts.
Progen Hub will also develop a gender-responsive mentorship and change champions toolkit to foster inclusive mentorship, psychosocial support, and leadership development tailored for marginalized learners in STEM.
The change that I hope to see through this research is the integration of survivor-centered standards, harmonization of GBV safeguards, embedding gender responsiveness into STEM and institutional frameworks, and the formalization of digital reporting tools, thereby driving systemic and sustainable change in higher education.
On a personal note, I've been working with gender-based violence since almost 10 years now, and that journey has deeply shaped my feminist perspective.
We have witnessed how mothers who are survivors of domestic violence have a dual burden, a burden that includes managing their own trauma, as well as managing the system and managing the trauma and system for their children who have experienced sexual violence.
As an educator, I have seen how barriers, silence, and unequal power relation can affect students' well-being, and I hope this research can contribute to lasting institutional change.
As a professor, mentor, and teacher who interacts closely with students every day, I believe universities have responsibility to better understand this issue and to create a safe environment where all students have an equal opportunity to succeed.
Growing up, I've seen many females pull back from opportunities and shrink themselves, not because they lack the ability to, but because the system that is built around us is built in a way that it teaches us that our safety is not worth fighting for. Hence, this is what sets this research in motion.
I grew up in Peru and saw this issue firsthand while commuting. I want to produce evidence that helps policymakers make public spaces safer for women.
As a Fulbe College alumnus, I care deeply about the well-being of students and their safety on university campuses.
As a woman who works in a STEM discipline in South Africa myself, I am very aware of all of the multiple risk factors that many other females in STEM disciplines face on an ongoing daily basis.
Over the years, I have witnessed how transgender women suffers from violence, discriminations, and social exclusions, and often their needs remained unmet in policies and research and invisible as well.
I'm personally motivated to be part of this research because I believe that higher education should be a space of equity, a space of inclusion, and innovation.
Thank you, everyone, on behalf of SVRI for joining us today and welcoming the 2026 grantee cohort of SVRI. Thank you particularly to our panelists for being so open about sharing your experiences with us. I hope our 2026 Grant Award winners will have some tips to take away from you that they can apply in their research projects, as well as people who will apply for upcoming SVRI grants will also listen to you closely. On that note, please look out for the SVRI weekly update next week. That will come out next week on Thursday, 16th of July, in which we'll make the announcement with details about the SVRI grant offering for the next year, 2027. So keep your eyes out for the SVRI update next week. We will also make simultaneous announcements on the SVRI webpage and our other platforms. This video will be available on YouTube to you, and a copy of the entire recording will also be uploaded to the SVRI website. Thank you once again. We are very grateful for all of you to have joined from various corners of the world today. to have listened in and welcome and celebrate the winners and the panelists with us. Thank you very much.